Please welcome up here Sarah Schwab and Karen Allen.
All right.
My name is Mike Musicano. I'm the program manager. This is our closing night, and this was a wonderful film to close on. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
Sarah, I know this film is very personal to you in a lot of ways, particularly experiencing your own father's death, but I noticed that you chose not to have the child's perspective of the story being told. What kind of led to that reasoning?
I wanted it to be a universal story about loss and love, mostly love. I wanted it to be a love story, first and foremost, and preparing for the inevitable, which many people, all people are going to face sometime in their life. And if they have the opportunity to share conversations with one another, when they know something is going to happen to them, I think that is pertinent to us as human beings. And so that's what my dad did for me. He had conversations with me when he knew that he was going to pass. And I think that was a beautiful thing in his legacy to leave for me. And so I wanted to instill that with Barry's character.
It was interesting because it kind of took me by surprise a little bit that there ended up being this really powerful kind of dual storyline too with the neighbors. But they ended up, thematically really working together so strongly. And I was kind of wondering, when you started writing it, was that a big part, the neighbor's storyline in the beginning, or did it kind of just come from the beginning, or how did that come to form?
Well, Karen can attest to this too. This started off as a stage play that she and I had been working on for like 6 years. And it was a one-set kitchen, 3-person play, and it was really Joey, Cora, and Barry. And so anything from Joey's life we had coming from Joey. We really didn't dive deep into his life. And so Karen and I had had many conversations about what that other narrative was going to be in a film perspective. And Karen, you can comment on this too, but I personally felt that it was important that for Cora to have a reason to live and to continue going on, it was important for us to know who Joey was and why she felt that he was, a son that she had never had. So I don't know if you want to add anything
Cora,
to
feel
that.
free. It was great to see you interact with both of them intergenerationally. How did you approach that?
Well, I mean, the relationship was very developed in the play. Joey was a major character in the play, and when Sarah decided to open it up, and suddenly we met a family that had only been alluded to in the play, and we met and I mean, she filled it out even much more than the play. There was really, I guess there was a girlfriend in the play.
There was a girlfriend, but she wasn't
was
in the play.
mentioned
Yeah.
here and there.
Sure.
So it became a whole nother world. She had the opportunity to really create this life on the farm and his whole world. And so we go back and forth between those two, which was the play was much more singular in that way. We were always, everything was being talked about, but we weren't seeing anything.
And it works so powerfully in a thematic way too, as she's able to kind of find more reasons to move on and have this connection with somebody else that's really deep. And I thought it was really interesting too how we're kind of expecting him to kind of actually go out into the forest or whatever he's going to do and kind of try to let his own demise take course, but it really isn't about that. It's everything that takes place before that. And I thought that was really interesting because I felt like I was able to really get a good sense of everybody else's character when I'm preparing for what I'm expecting to be this, like you're going to chase him down and there's going to be a big moment then.
Yeah.
But it really developed so much organically just through the characters on this farm, and I thought that was really amazing. So what, and one of the big things, of course, is who gets to decide how, when, and with whom you should die. And I just was curious, Sarah, if that was something you were thinking about from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that is the main theme, thematic element that I was grappling with when I was writing this story is, there really is no right answer when you're considering these things that people are going to go through in their lives. And however illness or, sudden tragedy hits us, the things that we say to one another and the acts that we do to one another, they are very important. And so I think every moment is precious. And I wanted to instill that with Barry. He knew, kind of the timeline that he was going to go. And I think having those conversations, which my dad had with me, I wanted to instill that in this film, because I think that those conversations, though they're hard, are very important, and they bring closure and they bring connection, which is something that I think that we very much need right now.
And one thing I thought was really interesting, and this is for both of you, is it was almost your character had written a book about your mother dying, and then it was almost like you were inspired by death again when Barry dies. That's how I read it anyways. There was something that, Sarah, where you were drawn to this idea in your own life of death being a catalyst for a story, and it's like your character was as well. And I guess I'm just generally curious, if that was something that you were thematically trying to build in from the beginning, and then also how you approached kind of just life as a writer and living on a farm as an actor too.
Well, it was a little thread that we worked on. I mean, there were so many things. I mean, from the time the play was first written, the very first draft of it, through to, maybe just the last versions of the play before Sarah wrote it as a screenplay, there were huge changes that happened. In fact, the way that everything concludes between Cora and Barry changed considerably the last couple of years of the play. The play didn't used to end the way the film ends. It ended in, there were lots of different versions of how it ended. And I think, yes, I think Joey always was the one who kind of makes this beautiful connection about, and it was actually in the play, it was actually more developed than it is in the film, but this beautiful connection between healing taking place in Cora through her writing. So Sarah felt it was very important, as did I, that we bring Cora back to a moment in which she sits down and she suddenly wants to pick up a pen, because she talks about, she stopped writing, right, and she stopped being able to finish anything when her life sort of fell apart in the middle part of her life. And it just seemed like a beautiful way to end the film, is that she kind of, just re-engages with a part of herself that was lost.
I just found it interesting to be inspired by the tragedy in a way, maybe kind of paralleling your own life. You guys want to take a few questions?
Sure.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Anybody want to raise their hand anywhere and ask some questions to either? Do we have another microphone?
Yes.
Okay, use mine. Oh, you're pretty close if you want to.
Yeah, we can probably hear people. It's a small room.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the film. I cried a lot. On that note, I wonder what it's like with this type of very solemn and dark film on set, whether you are so deep in these moments that you are feeling and crying internally, or whether you're kind of going back and forth between being in the scene and perhaps cracking jokes.
I think for me as an actor, there were a lot of different layers of what was going on. I had worked on this play for a long time with Sarah, and there was another actor, Jeff DeMunn, who we had done the play with for all these years. And I had kind of developed this deep relationship with him, and then in the end he couldn't do the film, and Bill came in, and Bill and I, we had almost an instant connection. I had met him once before, just very casually, had a conversation with him, and just really liked him as a person. And then, when he said he would do the film with us, I just had an instinct that we would click. I mean, we had very little rehearsal. We spent a day with Sarah sitting, going through the script, talking about the scenes. Huh?
2 days.
2 days.
Get your part.
Oh, I thought it was just the one, but you know, kind of talking through it all, and I think, you know, that year that we shot, I had lost both my mother and my sister, so I had this kind of very, very raw place inside of myself that was just, you know, there all the time, and I had also recently lost a very dear friend in a very similar situation. She had made a decision once she knew she had a very limited time that she did not want to see anyone. And I was so devastated by this decision she was making. She just isolated herself. And I mean, she was with a hospice person, I guess, when she died, but she wouldn't see her family, she wouldn't see her friends. And I just went through this whole experience of thinking, why would somebody make that choice? And of course, we had been working on the play, so it was a weird kind of thing where it was it's one thing when something happens in this world that you're creating, but then when it is somehow paralleled by something that's happening in your life, it takes on this whole other dimension. So to tell you the truth, the set was actually quite joyful. We had a wonderful time working together. We didn't walk around feeling miserable and like, you know, filled with like this sense of horror or any, you know. But when we were working, I mean, we fully engaged with what we were doing, but I didn't feel like I had to sort of live in that place all the time. It would have been unbearable to do that.
Yeah, and in addition, we had a cast and crew. I mean, we had a crew who some are here today.
Yes.
Yay! Who have been with us from the get-go. And so it was a bit of a catharsis that we had a family on set, you know, and it felt like a family on set that we could trust one another. So when we're deep diving into these kind of topics, you know, you have these people who are with you along for the ride. And, you know, if you have a bad day, if you have a moment, it's like you feel safe. So, you know, you're dealing with real life circumstances in your own life. You're doing it with the creative narrative. But then you have real people who are like buoying you the whole round. So it's, you know, that was the beautiful thing. There was life amongst this movie.
Yeah. Any more questions? All right.
Film was beautiful, by the way.
Thank
very,
you.
Very touching. In terms of the development process for Joey's character, because I know you mentioned he was part of the play initially, but then you developed it more for the film. I got a sense of like a very interesting dichotomy of change and how, whether it's inevitable or a choice you have to make, they kind of parallel in different ways. So I'm curious if, from what you had already gone through with the play, if that influenced how Joey's, you know, background character development and what we saw on screen was then influenced by that.
Just to recap the question, if you can't hear it, he's specifically asking about Joey character development.
Yeah, Joey with the screenplay was blown way out. In the screen, in the script, the stage play, we got brief ideas of what Joey's life was like. Whereas I felt with the screenplay, we really needed to see what his life was like. And so we saw Jim Bone's transformation. We saw Mom, we saw George, we saw all of that. And we saw what he was up against in his own life, for better or for worse. So I really wanted to show that side of it, and that was very, very different than the stage play of the version of the story.
Was Joey's brother in the stage play?
No.
Only mentioned.
Only mentioned.
Yeah, maybe only mentioned
Like once.
Once or twice,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have this whole narrative.
While we're still marinating on a few more questions, was it hard for you to kind of, I guess you didn't change your character too much from play to film, but did you kind of hard to keep it all in your head? Well, first it was this, then things have changed and evolved, you just kind of go with it?
Well, I think really, you know, the play much more focused on the relationship between Cora and Barry. And I think, you know, one of the real challenges that Sarah faced, and I felt like I also faced it, was what do we purloin from the play and tell their story? You know, because there's a lot that is missing from the screenplay that was in the play, because you know, it was 3 people on stage talking for an hour and 45 minutes or something. And so we knew a lot more about Cora, and we knew a lot more about Barry as well. And to try, I think that was the real challenge, you know, is to try to figure out what were the essential things we needed to know, and what could we let go of. And, you know, there's a lot of dialogue going back and forth, and there were things that were taken out that were then put back in, and there were things that were in that were, you know, we were able to kind of pare down. And it was kind of just, you know, looking for what really needed to be there.
Any more questions? No? So what's next for the film? Are you doing more festivals? Are you going to be distributing soon?
Yeah, hopefully distributing. We're going to be going to St. Augustine in a few
St.
weeks.
Augustine's next.
So that's sweet.
And then
we're going to Santa Fe,
possibly
and then
Sedona.
Yeah, Sedona. So we have a whole lineup of festivals that we want to be doing. We're beginning to have conversations with sales agents and distribution companies, and hopefully it will have longevity, you know, after the festival circuit. And we're just really honored to be in our I want to call this my hometown, even though I'm from Buffalo, but it's nice to be in my hometown of New York City, to be screening it here.
You filmed in Connecticut, right?
Yes, we did.
And it was, you were able to kind of live near the farm when you guys were filming, or was
We lived on the farm.
On the farm.
Literally, we did. We lived
Literally.
in a kind of artistic commune that used to belong to Skitch Henderson, and the house was right next door to it, and the actual farm with the cows was a little bit of a drive away, but we all lived on this communal farm, which was really, really fun.
It was a beautiful, engaging movie, and thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
A stage of Twilight. Thank you.